Hello, I want to tell you about the day that I drowned. My teammates pulled my lifeless body out from under the ice, resuscitated me. Hi, my name is Earle Swope. I'm a retired Boise Fire Department captain and a former recon Marine. January 2nd of 2008, my day started like this. Captain on the dive team, team instructor, highly experienced, highly trained. This is how my day ended. I drowned, I was resuscitated, transported to the hospital, and medically cleared. What I didn't know was that the psychological battle with PTSD was just starting to begin. But we're going to come back to all that here in just a little bit. I'm going to go back to my early days as a Boy Scout in Anchorage, Alaska. This is the only autograph I have ever sought in my life. This is Ray Genet. His nickname was a pirate. He had summited Mount Denali, then it was Mount McKinley, more times than any other human at that time. He ended up dying in 1979. I obtained this autograph from him when I was 12 years old. His motto was, "To the summit." That was my youthful philosophy. If you're going to do it, then do it well. My entire life, my father had told me that all Swope males served their country, the United States, through military enlistment. What fit my youthful philosophy was that if you're going to join the military, you needed to be a Marine, you needed to go infantry, you needed to go recon. Go all the way to the summit. The Marine Corps, in their infinite wisdom, placed me in the infantry but made me an LAV crewman. Why LAVs, armored vehicles, are an infantry MOS, I still don't understand to this day. We drove while the rest of the infantry walked. Every year in the Marine Corps, we have our annual qualifications. Marksmanship, physical fitness, and our swim qualifications. And my annual swim quals, the instructor thought I was confident and strong in the water, suggested I go to the instructor course. Again, dovetailed beautifully with my philosophy that if you're going to do it all the way. I attended the Water Safety Survival Instructor course, intensive course in Coronado, California. 32 of us started, 13 of us graduated, and this was the first time in my life that I had heard everyone will panic in the water. They were referencing an unplanned breath-holding event, so submersion in the water, that everyone will panic at some point. For the non-swimmer, that could be seconds that they start to panic because they know once they submerge, they're not making it back to the surface. For the experienced waterman, it could take a long time. Some extremely experienced watermen may even take it to the very edge where they're blacking out. At the end of my 4 years on active duty, I realized I enjoyed the Marine Corps. I planned to make a career out of it, but I'd realized life is much better as an officer than an enlisted man. So I traveled from California to Daytona Beach, Florida to attend college with the goal of eventually earning my commission. I decided to remain in the Marine Reserves. I joined 4th Anglico in West Palm Beach. About a year later, I took the in-dock test for 3rd Force Recon. Because I was a WSSI, they waived the watermanship component. I passed my in-dock and then was sent to the basic recon course back at Coronado, California. Had a great time going to school in the Pensacola area, training with just Force Recon Marines. Some great opportunities, getting to jump out of helicopters, jump out of airplanes. But about that time, I met a girl. That caused me to realize that while I really enjoyed the Marine Corps and marriage don't often coincide that well. I ended up moving back to Idaho to test for the Boise Fire Department, and I decided I could remain in the reserves and transferred to 4th Recon in Billings, Montana. This unit sent me to the Marine Corps Combatant Diver course. Here again, I was told that everyone will panic in the water, and our job was to push ourselves as hard as we could to extend our panic threshold. Because if we could buy another 10 seconds, 15 seconds of problem-solving time, that could save our life before we panicked. The instructors pushed us diligently and very extremely in the problem-solving component in the pool during the Marine Combatant Diver course. Then about a year after that, I was hired by the Boise Fire Department, completed their recruit academy in 1995. After my probationary time on the fire department, I applied for and was accepted to the Boise Fire Dive Rescue Team. They identified myself and one of my academy mates, Greg, as two highly experienced individuals, diving watermen, that they wanted to become the next generation of instructors on the team. We were sent to the Public Safety Scuba Instructor course and the Dive Rescue 1 Trainer course. We completed multiple dive and water rescue courses throughout the United States and returned as that next level of instructors for our team. The most severe type of diving we conducted on the Boise Fire Department was ice diving. Extremely dangerous, but it had the highest reward for that high level of risk because a young child could walk out on an icy pond, make it out to the middle of the pond, go through, and due to the mammalian dive reflex, stood the greatest chance of us making a successful rescue. So that high risk, high reward to save a life. But extremely dangerous training operations. Myself and Greg attended a formal ice diving class, came back, and we're working at really developing our ice diving in Boise, Idaho. We don't get ice all the time in Boise, so whenever we did, we went and we tried to complete as many ice dives as we could. This is Dave Grossman, retired lieutenant colonel in the Army and psychologist, and he's done extensive research on people in high-stress situations. And then what he says over and over, this is not Hollywood. You don't rise to the occasion. You sink to that level of training. This is what did me in. It's called the redundant supply valve. It's a 2-1 manifold. Somebody had put it together backwards, something we never envisioned happening, and then the lanyard was wrapped tight so that I couldn't grab the little orange lanyard and activate the plunger that would cause me to shift from my main tank, my 80 cubic foot cylinder, to my pony bottle, a 14 cubic foot cylinder, so about 5 minutes worth of air. With it being put together backwards, I was actually breathing off the pony tank, and then with the lanyard wrapped tight, I couldn't switch tanks. This is after they pulled my body out. I had stopped moving. I wasn't communicating due to the fact that I attempted to activate the RSV and couldn't. Our next sequence was to remove the full face AGA mask and grab the pony bottle regulator that was hooked up at the bottom of our neck and put that in my mouth, manually clear that. When I manually cleared it, went to inhale, I met complete resistance. That's when I realized that things were not working out well. I had lost communications because I had removed the AGA mask. I immediately started to move into problem solving by ascending to the underside of the ice. That during my problem solving, I had settled down into the muck on the bottom. I ascended to the bottom of the ice, finned as vigorously as I could, trying to hit the ice hole. It's extremely disorienting when you're under the ice, which is why we're always positively tethered and anchored to shore. When I realized that I wasn't going to make the ice hole and I was losing my peripheral vision, which I had experienced in the Water Safety Survival Instructor course, we pushed ourselves on an underwater 50-meter breath hold, and I had started to experience tunnel vision. The instructors told us that when that tunnel closed is when you would black out. I'd settled down now back into the mud, and I thought I'd pull in the slack on my tethered line and use line pull signals to communicate that if I gave 4 tugs, it would alert the shore personnel that I had an out of area, or that I just period had an emergency and I needed to be pulled in. As I was pulling the line in, I realized the tunnel was getting smaller and smaller. I was going to lose consciousness. The one thing I knew I did not want to do was aspirate water. I had read numerous accounts of drowning victims that had been resuscitated, survived the event, and died later of a respiratory infection from all the nasty stuff in the water that got into their lungs. The panic side of my voice was screaming at me to pull the regulator out of my mouth, and it was blaming that for my not breathing. The rational side of my mind realized that if I pulled that out and inhaled, I was still underwater. So with the heel of my hand, I held the regulator in my mouth, I pinched my nose, and I chanted the mantra, don't aspirate, don't aspirate, don't aspirate, until I lost consciousness. I must say that at that point, when the tunnel closed and I did lose consciousness, it was the most peaceful and blissful experience that I've ever felt in my entire life. Once my teammates realized something was wrong, they pulled on the tether line, they recovered my lifeless body, and they completed CPR, getting me back with about 8 to 9 rescue breaths and just starting compressions. This is a scene after I had been loaded in the ambulance and transported. When I was initially resuscitated, it was extremely confusing. It felt like I was breathing through a tube. I couldn't move my arms and legs. I couldn't focus. It probably took about 30 seconds for things to start to come into focus, and it wasn't until I was loaded in the back of the ambulance that I realized something really bad had occurred. Here they're loading they're loading my dive equipment in a body bag to take it apart at a later date to determine what went wrong. And when 2 of our other instructors took that gear apart, that's when they discovered that the RSV was the culprit. So I had survived. I was discharged from the hospital with no morbidity. I went home and realized something was really wrong with me. I wasn't cognating the way that I normally did. I was extremely emotional. I would tear up about anything. I had extreme highs, extreme lows, and it took very little to trigger a difference between the two. So I realized very quickly I should not be riding on a fire engine, especially not in the captain's seat, making life and death decisions on emergency scenes. I discovered that our department at that time had no plan for a psychologically traumatic event. Nobody knew what to do. I was given time off to work on my mental health, and as I was told by one of our chiefs, to go fix myself. And during this journey, over the last 14 years now, I've discovered a thing called personal resilience, which I did not know existed at that time. And so I just want to close with this quote. The resilience is that core strength that you use to lift the load of life. So when life gets heavy, you have to have that personal resilience. And next time, I hope you'll join me when I talk about my journey through PTSD, into recovery from that, and personal resilience. Thanks for watching.